Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And together we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, we have a lot to talk about because, as you know, Donald Trump is currently in The Hague. Finally, they got him to The Hague, Ron.
Yes.
Unfortunately, for the wrong reasons on this occasion. He's there for the NATO summit. They've been sucking up to him like crazy. You know, they're not stupid, those chaps. They've really worked out how to play the president of the United States. And there's been like an agreement. Everyone's going to pay 5% of GDP towards NATO, and that's made Trump happy. I mean, it's literally like giving sugar to a horse, isn't it? To get it to behave.
Except Spain, who basically
just
said, "We don't care. We're not doing it."
They're having none of it. They're having none of it. So that's what's happening right now. I had a kind of fantasy that maybe the kind of the Hague might kind of arrest him whilst he's there, put him on trial in the International Criminal Court, just see how that goes. But then I just thought, that's just going to be the start of something really rather terrible for everybody. So we can dream. We can dream.
I think about it though, like if people talk about impeaching or whatever, but the problem is Vance. I mean, that's like a smart move by Trump strategically, is to pick somebody as horrible and reprehensible as Vance, because it's almost like an insurance policy, because it's like every time people think like, oh, we got to get rid of Trump, it's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Vance, so.
But that is problematic in itself, though, isn't it? Because then you're going to kind of normalize the existing dictator for fear of him being replaced by a worse dictator.
Yeah.
And surely history tells us that you would need to get rid of the first dictator and worry about the second dictator next.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a healthy recipe to be like, oh, well, Vance is the alternative. It's like, I don't know, they're both pretty bitter pills to swallow.
Yeah.
Still, the Europeans are not taking anything for granted. They're kind of bringing about some insurance policies for themselves. It was interesting this morning, though. I know we're a little bit off script here, but I just wanted to mention that Mark Carney kind of got there ahead of everybody else and kind of did this presentation about Canada joining with Europe for security, completely leaving out the United States. I mean, even on the wall behind him, there was, the Canadian flag, and then there was the European flag, and there was like no mention of the US. I mean, this is some weird shit going down.
And apparently too, when they had their talks about Ukraine, they left him out of those too. Like the only session that he attended was the session where they all announced that they were going to spend more on defense,
right?
Which is, the only thing he's every time NATO comes up, that's all he talks about. So they kind of like, I think for sake of peace of mind for themselves and be able to get things done, they excluded him from the other stuff, which probably was fine with him.
Totally. He's so uncomfortable when he's around others who are superior to him in terms of intellect, which is pretty much everybody, right? Which is why he looks uncomfortable when he goes to visit a children's day center. Let's talk about, because since you and I last met a week ago, the war on Iran had kind of kicked off. We predicted that it was going to happen within 24 or 48 hours. I think it ended up happening like 36 hours after our prediction. But this was effectively an act of war without ratification by Congress. Donald Trump thinks he is Congress, so he doesn't seem to, care for the protocols. But what's happened now after he, bombed with those B-2 bombers and those pilots that he kept talking about and all that stuff, is that the intelligence is now coming through, courtesy of some leaks, amongst other things, that the targets were not actually obliterated as Donald Trump would have you think. And he is furious that this has got out, isn't he?
Yeah, these are exactly the times when having a president and an administration that is just habitual liars and lie to us all the time. There's certain things like he can lie to us about the budget. We can laugh. Oh yeah, sure. 20 million migrants came in during Biden's. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. But these are the times when having a habitual liar as a president is really, really a problem, because he's lying to the security establishment. He's lying to the international community. And he's lying to the American people. And in a situation like this, that's really bad, because, all he wants are these short-term wins. He wants these short-term victories. And in a situation like this, that's not what the mission is all about. I mean, I was against doing this, but once you've done it, you've got to do it right, and you got to finish the job. And so you can't go in and just bomb these facilities before any bomb damage assessment has been done. Nobody's on the ground. Nobody knows for sure. Also, by the way, the amount of enriched uranium that Iran has that can make a bomb can fit into the trunks of 10 cars. And they had advance notice that these bombs were coming. Yeah. So there's absolutely no guarantees whatsoever that we set them back more than a month or two. We don't know for sure. So a president should be honest and should say that, and should say, look, we hope we got the job done, but maybe we didn't. We're waiting to find out. And if we need to go back, or we need more negotiations or whatever, that's what we'll do. But unfortunately, Donald Trump, it does not have that in him to be honest and with the American people and with the world, because he's got to declare victory and be the hero right away. When every expert, and I've spent gobs of time reading atomic energy experts over the past week, and they are unanimous. Every single one of them around the world and in the USA, there is absolutely no way anybody can know how far that they've been set back by these bombings at this point in time. Maybe we will eventually, but no way anytime soon.
And this is part of the problem of having incompetent, inexperienced people in senior positions. Not just Trump as the president with no military experience, but Pete Hegseth with kind of brief military experience, but not at this level, not in the situation room, not handling bombings and attack squads and everything else. I mean, apparently the Navy had to send a decoy group of B-2 bombers in the opposite direction because Donald Trump had basically given away on social media that this was going to be happening. And partly him saying, I've got to leave the G7 summit early because I've got like a little thing to go and deal with, he kind of said, which was obvious to the Iranian analysts, I'm sure. But also posting on social media stuff, the timing of everything, he just can't zip it, can't keep his mouth shut.
Because it's more important for him to look good than the security of an operation. I mean, I counted 3 major things also that he leaked just in the last couple of days. I mean, the NATO chief sent some text messages to him, I guess, praising him. Every world leader knows that they have to do this behind the scenes. They have to stroke his ego. So, he sent them a text saying, great job, Mr. President. You were, and that was a private text.
I know.
And he put it out there.
Embarrassing, isn't it?
He put this man's private text out to the world. So what does that? It tells every world leader, everyone around the world, anything you send Trump could be on True Social within the next couple of hours.
Right.
There is nothing private with him. He will take in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't take someone's text message or DM to me and put it on the internet ever. Even if it was horrible and vicious, I wouldn't do it. Right. So he did that. He also leaked the Israeli intelligence report. After the U.S. intelligence report, the DIA report, was leaked, rebutting his claims about how successful the attack was. He leaked some Israeli intelligence reports, and I guarantee you he did not clear that with the Israelis, because that involved spies inside Iran. That report was compiled from spies inside Iran. And by the way, Iran has been rounding up hundreds of people inside Iran this week who they suspected of spying for the Israelis. So he may have just outed some people in doing that. And then what was the third one? It was the bomb that Israel was on their way. They had fighter jets in the air on the way after the ceasefire. And he starts posting on True Social, turn the jets around.
Right.
I mean, he's leaking like a live bombing in the middle while he put those Israeli pilots in danger, their lives in danger, yelling and barking at Netanyahu. This guy is completely unhinged. We already know Hegseth can't keep a secret.
Right.
But we got the president himself who can't keep anything to a secret.
I just want to say to the people that voted for Donald Trump, you deserve this. Like, what you've done is you've just destabilized in the last 6 months of this administration. You've basically destabilized not just the Middle East, but the entire world, to the point that our closest ally, Canada, is now aligning with the European Union and leaving out America. That no one wants to travel here. The tourism is collapsing. Industry is collapsing because of it. This kind of fear of the tariffs and the way the supply chain is set up. And not to mention, we're going to talk about ICE a little bit later, but, the fact that we have effectively the Gestapo on the streets of this nation now. This is what you voted for. And anybody who says, I didn't know, and I wasn't expecting it to be like this, and, it's like all the farmers going, oh, they've taken all of my farm workers. You voted for this. And this is the problem of these media ecosystems, isn't it? That people are really... if we were warning people in our snowflake media, but if they're living in their bubbles, maybe they weren't warned, I guess. Yeah. That's part of the problem.
The big question, and I've read this from a lot of experts as well this week, is did we actually put Iran closer to a nuclear bomb by doing this than we were last week? As we've seen him do many times, where he launches something that's intended to do one thing, the opposite happens, because our own intelligence was saying that they were enriching uranium, but they were not in the process of developing a bomb. That was U.S. intelligence was saying that, which the Israelis were contradicting, and he chose to side with the Israeli intelligence over our own, right? But let's say they weren't. Let's say they weren't looking to develop a bomb, and they were looking for economic concessions, lifting of sanctions, et cetera, which they have in the past. Is there any way that they are not going to develop a bomb now? I mean, they are going to do everything that they possibly can to develop a nuclear weapon now, because there's no reason for them not to. They realize now that that's probably the only way that they can defend themselves against Israeli attacks is with nuclear deterrence. Because once they have a bomb, what they're thinking is going to be, that is going to stop Israel and the U.S. from continuing to attack us. It's the only thing that's going to stop them is for us to get a bomb. So that's number one. I think it's going to only speed up their efforts. And then number two, it's going to make them be even more important at hiding things. Keeping it underground, keeping it under wraps, secrecy is going to be heightened. They kicked out all the international inspectors that were there. They're all gone. They're never going to let those inspectors back in their country.
So he's basically just alienated Iran, whereas prior to him tearing up the Iran nuclear agreement, they were at the negotiating table whenever they were needed, because by nature of the fact that there was this shared document. But now they've basically been isolated. In the same way that Trump's trying to isolate the US from everybody else, this has made Iran more dangerous.
And to show you how delusional he was about this whole scenario was his post about regime change.
Yes.
Actually,
I know.
It's the great American folly. I mean, you go back in the history books, you can go back as far as you want, hundreds of years with Cuba, wherever it is, Korea, Vietnam. We always believe that when we go in and topple the existing regime that we don't like, that there is going to be this popular uprising, Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever you want to talk about, that's going to be pro-American and love us and want freedom and is going to create this democratic society. And it never, ever happens. And you see there, this appeared to be part of Trump's plan.
Yeah.
He wanted to tell his own people at first that this is only about nuclear deterrence, but then he couldn't help himself. And he puts out this post saying, maybe we need regime change. And what he was saying is he actually believed that there were opposition groups in Japan who were going to rise up and overthrow the Islamic regime.
Yeah.
When it is so deeply embedded for 40 years in that society, it's not.
He knows nothing.
Took out the Ayatollah. This regime's not going away.
He knows nothing of the culture. I mean, the same could be said for George W. Back in Iraq days. But learn some lessons from history, please. And I mean, even that post he put out about China can now continue to purchase oil from Iran.
Insane.
Hopefully they'll be purchasing plenty from the US also. It was my great honor to make this happen. It's completely insane.
During the campaign, he complained about Obama and Biden allowing China to purchase oil from Iran.
Yeah.
He said that this was the stupidest thing that ever happened. We should, as if we could have prevented it. But he said we should have never allowed China to purchase oil from Iran. And they used the Chinese revenue to build their nuclear program, is what he said during the campaign repeatedly. Okay, we put out an article this morning with all of his old tweets about this subject.
Yeah.
So he was complaining and saying, we caused Iran to be able to get a nuclear program because we allowed, quote unquote, China to buy oil. So what happens? Iran threatens to close the Straits of Hormuz, which would basically cut off their ability to export oil. Who is the main country that uses the Straits of Hormuz? China, to bring oil from Iran to China. So, closing the Straits of Hormuz really doesn't do anything except hurt Iran. So what that tweet is some kind of weird brag by Trump saying, I kept the Straits of Hormuz open to the world. And it's like, wait a minute. Why is that a good thing? Like, why do we care about that? We don't use the Straits of Hormuz. So it's like, it makes, the thing that he just destroyed their nuclear program, allegedly, what he claimed to, but he didn't. And then he's bragging that he's going to allow China to go back in and help finance and revive their program again. It's insane.
Because he is insane. And, I keep saying we're trying to analyze insanity, and it's very difficult. And the media is trying to analyze insanity. And, everyone's just going around in circles. He is insane. And his insecurity is such that he's having to share private text messages from foreign leaders because he's not getting the love that he needs in the moment. And if he's feeling insecure, he'll be like, right, I'm going to post this just to prove that actually what I did was a good thing. Because isn't it crazy that Trump doesn't realize that he's being buttered up by these other leaders? Like, he has no radar for the fact that they're playing him.
It should be obvious because they're all saying the same things.
Right.
You're powerful. You're strong. I wish I was in a room with them when they talk about this. Like, this is what you got to say.
Yeah.
Strong, powerful leader, better than Biden. You can just see like they have these little catchphrases and buzzwords that they know just appeals to him. And yeah, it's absolutely nuts that we have a president who's so easily manipulated. And you can see, this all started because Netanyahu manipulated him. Correct. Netanyahu is the one who got him to do this on behalf of really the Israelis more than, even if Iran developed a nuke, the threat is not to us. The threat is to Israel and the Arab states.
And Netanyahu's been, as we said last week and showed last week, Netanyahu's been pushing this line about Iran and nuclear bombs for 40 years. And so, Trump is... I wanted to talk just very quickly about this. Trump's idea of a friend is very interesting to me because, any of us who have friendships, they're built up over months, years, decades. We know who we trust. We know how much we give of ourselves. We know how much we want to share. We know who we can be vulnerable with. That's the difference between close friends and then acquaintances, and it's very layered. Trump is referring to dictators and world leaders who he's met once for 10 minutes and says, well, they're a friend of mine. They're a friend of mine. Or he has a phone call with them, and because they say something nice to him, they suddenly move out of the acquaintance bracket and into the close friend bracket. This is what we're dealing with, Ron. We're dealing with somebody who has no friends.
They get moved in and out multiple times.
Right. But isn't it interesting? He uses this phrase a lot. It used to be about Putin. Putin's a friend of mine. I can end the war in 24 hours. And this notion of him having any friends is just remarkable to me because he's just not capable of it. He doesn't have the humanity for friendship. But I've started to work out now, because it's happened so much recently, because of these international meetings, that his idea of friendship is somebody who says something positive to him, who he has on a pedestal.
Well, somebody who worships him. I mean, that's part of it. Yeah, I don't think that he would ever allow anyone around him in his orbit who doesn't kiss his ass. You know, you've got to praise him constantly. Could you ever envision a scenario where Donald Trump would hang out and play golf with somebody who's critical of him, who makes fun of him?
Yeah.
If he hits a bad shot in golf, somebody who said, "Oh man, that was terrible. You played like crap today." Like people rib each other, especially guys on a golf course. I mean, they're giving each other a hard time. You cannot imagine anybody doing that to Donald Trump. Like, I don't think he would allow it. And you look at the people who are closest to him in his orbit, people like Dan Scavino, they're all just cultists. They're all cultists who worship him.
What about Natalie? Don't forget Natalie.
Yeah, her too. Yeah. The people that are closest in his orbit are the ones who, you know, worship him like a god. And so are those friends? He would call them friends. I don't really see that as a friendship.
Well, Dan Scavino's not important or rich enough. I think they have to be rich and have power in order to go into the friend camp who says something nice to him. I think that the people
you're probably right.
The people in his immediate orbit,
people like that, you know, Charles Kushner, his
big
friends
donors
on Wall Street, the real estate guys, he would probably consider them more friends, but they're not friends in the way you and I would define that word.
Oh, for anyone else. I mean, I'm sure it's never happened for him, you know, and this is part of the problem. So let's just go back to this intelligence.
I'm going to say maybe Roger Stone is the closest that he has to like a
Can you imagine,
friend.
like, if all you have as a friend is Roger Stone? Like, can you imagine that being
That's
your
probably
life?
the closest thing, you know, to a friend.
I pity him. I really do. Let's just go back to the intelligence thing, because he posted when he saw that it was CNN that had kind of run this story saying that the intelligence assessment basically said that they weren't as successful at the strikes as he thought. He kind of posted this furious thing. Fake news. CNN, together with the failing New York Times, have teamed up in an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history. The nuclear sites in Iran are completely destroyed. Both the Times and CNN are getting slammed by the public. So, you know, we can take all that with a pinch of salt. I want to play, though, the clip of, I'll play a little bit of this, of CNN making this big reveal that actually it wasn't quite as successful as Trump would have us think.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have major breaking news into CNN. 3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So this is an assessment that actually is out from the Defense Intelligence Agency. That is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question that has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What are you learning, Natasha?
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear...
Okay, that's probably enough of us to get our heads around. I mean, Trump was not happy about this. Pete Hegseth was not happy about this. Even J.D. Vance was like thrown on TV to try and kind of deal with this. What I wanted to say something about the leaking. You know, there's going to be a huge amount of leaking in this administration, as there was in Trump's last administration, simply because people who are true to their jobs and who work for the United States as opposed to for the dictator recognize that national security is at risk, and so expect to see a whole plethora of leaks going forward, especially when it comes to things like this. People who know that you cannot have the president coming out and just lying to the American public like this.
Think about the last major leak to come out of the Pentagon to the press, and it was about Elon Musk's briefing that he was going to get on China, classified briefing, which he had absolutely no business getting. So that was leaked by people inside the Pentagon who were shocked and stunned and wanted to stop it. So they exposed it to the press. It got out, and it did stop it. Of course, what happened? Same thing that's happening right now. Trump angrily denounces it. This is not true. Hegseth denounces it. It's not true. But then what do? They do a huge investigation of internally that he fires 3 of his top staffers, Hegseth.
Yeah.
And then we find out a month later, when everything blew up between Musk and Trump and Musk goes out the door, that it was all true. Every bit of it was true, that he did have the briefing. It was canceled. So they lied to us, but people inside the Pentagon who cared enough about the truth and security leaked it to the media. Here we are again. It's the same thing is happening all over again. Somebody in the Pentagon, very high up in the intelligence community, is watching Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth lie to the American people, lie to the world, and say this has all been completely destroyed. It's obliterated. They're done. They have no nuclear program. The world is safe. We can all go on with our lives, and we never have to worry about Iran again. This is the party line. And somebody in the Pentagon is going, I know that that's not true. Because you know what? And Steve Bannon admitted this on his show, who was against this bombing. Any ex-CIA officers talk about this. There's only 3 ways to know for sure. 1, you send special forces in there to go inspect the actual area, inspect the facilities, and confirm it themselves. 2, you have spies on the ground. Maybe you have somebody inside Iran's nuke program who can get you that information. Or 3, you hear through signal intelligence the Iranians talking about it through intercepted communications and whatever they might say. Those are the only ways. And we apparently, at least at this point, don't have that kind of confirmation. And so you have 3 people at least risking their careers, risking going to prison to get the truth to the American people. And how does the administration react to that? They, number 1, go on a diatribe and angrily denounce the media. It's the media's fault. All they did is get the report that was leaked. I mean, it's not, this isn't CNN. This isn't New York Times. They're simply reporting what they've learned. So they attack the media. Okay, that's number 1. And number 2, they've launched a huge internal investigation yet again at the DIA and at the Pentagon, polygraphs and everything else, trying to find the leakers because they're going to put in prison the people who told the truth to the American people.
Never mind fraud, waste, and abuse. Imagine the amount of money that is being wasted by this Trump regime. Sending a decoy of B-2 bombers in the wrong direction because the commander-in-chief has leaked information publicly and they have to save face. So there's probably a few extra million to send that lot in that direction. But also just these investigations and all, lie detector tests and everything that goes with it. It's just huge additional cost and slows the machine down.
Well, we heard from the last guy that was fired, his chief of staff said, Hegseth literally spends half of his time obsessed with leaks and media reports.
Right.
Like he's constantly chasing ghosts and shadows.
But I think they all do.
If you would stop lying to the American people and do your job, you wouldn't have to worry about leaks because there'd be nothing bad to leak.
The president and the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, and all of these, institutions, they are America. The American people are America. We're all on the same team. And that's how it should be. But a Trump administration, whether it be the first one or this one, puts Trump in a completely different team to the Americans and to the institutions, constantly bashing one off the other, lying to one, covering one up. There's no unity in like a central government. And it's so frustrating because you want the president to be a president for all Americans and for all departments to be part of that. And what we have is this fragmented, kind of broken up federal government now, deconstructed in so many ways, but falling apart. Nothing they do is successful. Everything is a screw-up. Every announcement is a screw-up. There are walkbacks, rehiring people and they're not being able to get in touch with them because they don't have email addresses anymore. I mean, all of this stuff. I mean, I saw one story today saying that some federal workers are now getting bills for health care because their health care got cut off when they got fired, and so treatment that they were already having is now not covered by their employment because they've been made unemployed. I mean, those are the bits that drop between the cracks in the sidewalk. People forget that the knock-on effect of all of this incompetence and chaos is people literally being bankrupted with healthcare costs because they've lost their lifetime job working for the authorities.
The problem is what has happened for the first time in American history is we have senior cabinet, and we all see, unlike authoritarian countries and many countries around the world, we don't take oaths to the leader. We don't take oaths to the president, senior government officials, military officials. They take oaths to the Constitution. So it's a very unusual thing. It really never happened in world history prior to this country doing that. All right. We set the stage for that to happen in other places around the world. But this administration, for the first time, doesn't have that outlook. And what gives that away is the fact that within hours after Trump finishing the bombings and announcing the ceasefire, what did they do? All of the sycophants, everyone on Fox News, all the administration officials, they weren't talking about how good this was for Israel or security in the Middle East or the United States or anything else. They were talking about a Nobel Peace Prize for Donald Trump. That's right. Their first thought. How can our dear leader get an award for this?
He must have put out a diktat saying now is the time for you to talk about why I deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, because that's ultimately all he's ever really wanted. And even
is that what this is all about?
Even his son posted affirmative action is when Barack Obama gets the Nobel Peace Prize instead of Donald Trump. Yeah, I have no doubt that this. I mean, personally, I think that the bombings that happened when they did was also a distraction for his big, beautiful bill, which, I genuinely think that was part of the politics of this, was that because of what was going down with the bill, this was a convenient distraction. I'm sure other people have different views on that. That's just my view. But, the Nobel Peace Prize, as crazy as it might sound, is something that Donald Trump is so desperate for, and will put his surrogates onto this, and he will make them talk about it. He'll make them go on TV and talk about it, and he'll make them, push for it. I think, hasn't Pakistan already talked about nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize?
Somebody did, and then they withdrew it. But
right.
I mean, but he's been obsessed with this ever since Obama got it. Once he became president, he's talked about this many times. His first term, I mean, he talked about wanting the Nobel Peace Prize. He's mentioned this many, many times.
Yes.
After those Abraham Accords, which is like UAE signs a peace deal with Kuwait or something.
The fake peace agreements.
Countries that had never been at war with each other ever. Right. Yeah. Signed a peace agreement.
Yeah, and they left the Palestinians out of that.
And completely. The first thing Trump does is start saying, I should get a Nobel Prize. Like this is about him, right? Everything is about him. And so that's what these people were doing. I mean, it's a joke. This is a guy who came into office, threatened to invade Greenland, threatened to take over Canada, threatened to seize the Panama Canal, threatened to displace the entire population of Gaza and build condos, and he actually thinks he's going to get a Nobel Prize?
Don't forget changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico. That was a good one as well. Let's see his surrogates all going on TV to try and push for this.
Absolutely. Look, President Trump is going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, no doubt. You look at what he's done with the Congo and Rwanda. You look at where he is with Pakistan and India and what he's done there. And then you look at this, what everyone talked about, but no one thought was possible. He has brought peace to a region that needed stability. He has shown what America First policy actually is. He's made sure that he's preserving American lives at every single turn. Look, President Trump understands what we need. We need a president who is unafraid to act and that stands firmly with the American citizens. That's what we saw today. And look, Democrats don't know what to say. I mean, their silence has never been louder, if you know what I mean. And I think it's because President Trump just keeps winning and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, white people. This is the worry, isn't it?
It's embarrassing.
If you're a Fox News viewer and you live in that ecosystem, then they have just successfully delivered the information that Trump wanted delivered, which is that the mission was accomplished and successful, that he deserves the Peace Prize. I mean, talking about bringing peace to the Congo. I mean what's he talking about?
It wasn't just Brit. I mean, it was like for 48 hours on Fox. It was nonstop.
Yeah.
One congressman, one senator, one host after another. Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. For bombing Iran, he should get a Peace Prize for bombing Iran. After all that other stuff. And next thing, Congo, he mentioned Congo as part of his rally speeches every time during the campaign. Constantly mentioned Congo. He can't find Congo on a map. He has no idea where Congo is. He doesn't know anything about it. But why did he mention Congo in just about every speech during his campaign? Because he used that as an example of black people coming from Africa into the United States.
That's right.
He kept saying, they're coming from mental institutions in the Congo. They're opening out their prisons in the Congo. So he used the Congo as his example to scare the white people that, black people from the jungles of Africa are coming in here from prisons.
Yeah.
So we're going to give him now a Nobel Peace Prize for some State Department diplomat negotiated. Rwanda, he doesn't know where these places are on a map. India, Pakistan. I mean,
they even mentioned Yemen. They mentioned Yemen as well, didn't they?
Foreign minister came out and issued a statement saying Donald Trump had absolutely nothing to do with our peace agreement with Pakistan. Nothing. He said it on video. I mean, so these are the things that, first of all, and why is it that they're so obsessed with Trump getting an award? I mean, give me a break.
Well,
has anybody ever lobbied for a peace prize before? I mean, he's literally like doing a campaign. It wouldn't shock me if he does. Where do they do this in Norway? The Peace Nobel Prize. He might hold a rally to try and get himself a peace prize in Norway.
I mean, he didn't get Man of the Year one time, and he was very thrilled about that. So it's
Michigan Man of the Year.
That's right, Michigan Man of the Year,
which he made up also, by the way.
This, I think, more than anything, is about Obama, as we said earlier. I think
it's all about Obama.
He cannot drop the fact that Obama, who was a black president, had more success than him. That's why he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement. He tore it up because Obama organized it.
It was negotiated by Obama. I believe if it had that been negotiated by George W. Bush, he would have left it alone.
I totally agree. And that's why he's after the Affordable Care Act and anything with Obama's name on it. He just can't take it. And that goes to the systemic racism and that white supremacy that just lives in his veins. He can't not. Let's just talk quickly about Bibi, his friend Bibi, because he felt quite betrayed, didn't he? That he'd announced this ceasefire and then beyond the ceasefire, missiles were still flying. Let's take a look.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
I'd just like to make a public apology for the obscenity used there by the President of the United States on national and worldwide television. I mean,
about the Prime Minister of one of our closest allies. Yeah.
When a president or anybody in leadership cannot keep their obscenity trap shut, it is a sign that they are unraveling, that they've kind of lost control of their faculties. And to me, I mean, we know that he's deteriorating and he's basically rotting from the inside, and we're all having to watch it. But to use the F word in this way when he did, to me shows extreme weakness. To him, I guess it's the other way around.
So here's what happened. So he gets both sides to agree to a ceasefire, right? Which, by the way, is completely in Iran's interest. I mean, Iran is the biggest beneficiary of this ceasefire. You don't do this. I mean, you keep them guessing. You keep them wondering if you're going to strike again. You don't say, okay, we're going to give a deep breath and give you time to regroup and fix your facilities and get your uranium straightened out.
He's got no experience in this at all. He's not a negotiator.
A ceasefire, the greatest beneficiary of this ceasefire is Iran right now, which is mind blowing. But it was negotiated very late at night, and he gives them. They agree to a 12-hour window. Now this is Bibi playing him because Bibi intends to use that 12 hours to absolutely throw everything he has at Iran, and Iran did the same thing back as much as they could. But I think that they've held back a lot of stuff, but they retaliated, and they also launched some stuff at Qatar, right? So he goes to bed thinking, he makes this big announcement, peace in our time. He's like Neville Chamberlain waving the Munich agreement on the tarmac of the airport at Heathrow. It's like, it's over, right? So he goes to bed thinking, that's it. I've ended this. And he wakes up in the morning to find out that they've been bombing the shit out of each other all night. And, he's all pissed off. You saw there, that was like 7 o'clock in the morning, where he's getting on the plane to go to the NATO summit, and he's just fuming. He's furious, and and there were planes in the air, as he mentioned in that statement, on their way to Iran to do more bombings. So, I mean, because it's all about him, really. That's what it's all about. He was embarrassed. He is concerned that it made him look foolish.
Yeah. And he didn't need their help to look foolish, let's be honest. So Caroline Levitt had to go on TV, and she's running with this oxymoron, peace through strength. Doesn't make any sense to me. Let's take a look.
And nobody knows what it means to accomplish peace through strength better than President Trump. He is the one who came up with that motto and that foreign policy doctrine, and he successfully implemented it in his first term. And this is one of many steps he is taking to successfully implement peace in his second term.
Yes, he's also doing hot through cold and fat through thin and anything else that they can think of to say. I mean, this whole peace through strength thing is interesting because in the NATO summit, they've actually been using it, giving it back to him, and actually using this kind of weird language to comfort Donald Trump like a pacifier. But I don't know necessarily that this peace through strength has legs going forward, does it?
Look, she says this is Donald Trump's. Peace through strength has been throughout the centuries used by world leaders. It was first used by Emperor Hadrian. in I think about 190 AD was one of his mottos. Ronald Reagan used the term constantly, peace through strength, in his speeches. So here's the problem when you have like a 27-year-old press secretary who knows nothing. And my comment on that clip, I captioned that with like, the problem is everyone in the Trump administration, what they know about history and politics began in 2016 with Donald Trump. Right. They don't know anything prior to Trump. Like, that's what they know, because
even that Reagan was doing Make America Great Again. I mean,
they got into politics because of Trump. It's not like they have this deep historical knowledge that they're working off of. Right. So that's number one is what her saying, peace through strength. First of all, when is the peace happening? That's my other question. Okay, I see him trying to act like a tough guy, but I haven't seen any peace. He didn't get us out of Afghanistan in his first term. Biden had to do that, and then he blamed Biden for it after laying traps for him. So when is all the peace happening? We just got done bombing Yemen, then we bombed Iran. Like, okay, I see all these displays of being a fake tough guy. When is peace going to happen? And by the way, let's talk about Leavitt for a second, because there are a lot of reports that she's unraveling. And Asen, who does all her clips all of her press conferences, mentioned this to me the other day. He said, she's not right. Like, she looks bad. She's not, like, stressed out. Yeah. Not smiling anymore. Like, when she first came in that first month, she was giddy. It was like, it was a big deal, like press secretary.
It was a dream job.
All over, the way she dressed, everything was just, but she also has an infant that she gave birth in the last few months. So she's dealing with that, a newborn, as well as all of this stuff where she's got to go out there. Her job is to lie. Her job is to lie, and she knows that she's lying. And that takes a toll on people, unless you're psychotic like Trump, unless you're a malignant narcissist where you can lie and, not even know the difference anymore.
Normal to you. Yeah.
She's not like, her. So I think she's not going to last very long. I really do, because you can see the burnout happening with her right away. And every answer now is just like, Biden, Trump is the greatest. No matter what the question is, her answer is Trump is the greatest of all time, and Biden is terrible, and Trump is fixing all of Biden's messes. That's her answer to every question.
I see the same thing with Pam Bondi as well, the Attorney General. This kind of constant
in her congressional hearings,
right? Obsession with Trump, the Führer, the dictator, the leader, referring everything to him. No mention of the law or the Constitution or any of the things that she's supposed to be doing, in terms of separate branches. But also, to, as you say, to go to work for Donald Trump every day and have to play this character, because as I see it, everyone's like acting a role in the same way that they all go to the same plastic surgeon and eventually they all end up looking like the same person. That it maybe it's like wearing a kind of Nazi uniform or something. It's like when you're in it, you are completely committed to it. But if you have any external distractions, like a newborn, for example, I mean, if she was living in a civilized country, she'd get 12 months maternity leave, right? She should not be doing this job right now. It's not good for her or for her kid. So there are huge stresses. But as you say, we're all just human. We are all fallible. We are not machines. Trump might be by nature of the narcissism. But, some are saying that he's wearing a catheter and everything else under his costume. So goodness only knows how he's falling apart. Keep seeing photographs of his hand all mashed up and his walk becoming more of a kind of slow hunchback limp and things. We're, at the end of the day, this drive for perfection that the MAGA Republicans go for, it's just not sustainable.
How many people, made it through all 4 years of his first term?
Yeah.
I think his agriculture secretary and his transportation secretary. I think that, and those are like the most low stress jobs in the administration that he doesn't care about anyway, and he pays no attention to. So, but anybody in a high, look at his chiefs of staff, look at his secretaries of defense, look at his press secretaries. How many did he go through in his first administration?
Right.
3 or 4 of each. It was a revolving door. They were constantly either being fired or quitting, because working for this man forces you to do things that take a toll.
Well, look at Marco
on
Rubio.
your psyche.
Look at Rubio, the way he's having to kind of lie on camera.
It's like a beaten dog.
Right. He might be the next one to fall. And then J.D. Vance, of course, who's a bit of a robot and he's a totally made-up character. He has a fake name.
Oh, he has no problem with it.
He has no problem with it. Let's take a
Plus,
look.
he doesn't really have a job. He just floats around.
There is that, yes. He's just waiting to be president, isn't he?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at him kind of trying to talk up the notion of war for a president that ran on no new wars.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long drawn out thing. We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do. Simple.
Yeah, he's just making it up, isn't he? They're just doing damage limitation where they can.
Well, he's only talking to one group of people right there.
The
MAGA.
Yeah.
MAGA. That's it. That was the sole reason for him doing that interview. And everything he said was directed at the people in the MAGA base who are dead set against this war, which is a big chunk of his base. They're out there, they're fuming, they're furious. You promised us no new wars, you promised us no intervention. What are we doing? You're talking about Greenland, you're talking about Panama, you're focused to Yemen, you're bombing Iran. This isn't what we signed up for. This is what we voted for, is what they've been saying. And then what he's really answering specifically is Trump's regime change tweet, because that's the one that sent them over the edge. It was sort of like this. They had this cork on the champagne bottle that had been shaken up with the bombing. The bombing shook the champagne bottle of MAGA, and they were all like, "What are we doing? This isn't what we signed up for." And the faithful, the leaders, the influencers all over the internet, are your people like your Charlie Kirks and all the propagandists. Were all saying, "No, this isn't about regime change. This isn't going to be like Afghanistan, Iraq. We're not trying to topple the government. We're only," even they have said, "We're not at war with Iran. We're at war with their nuke program." That's another statement Vance made in that interview.
That was a stretch, wasn't it?
So he's trying to tell the MAGA faithful, like, this isn't, we're living up to our promise, right? And then what happened is Trump puts out the regime change tweet, and the cork came off the champagne bottle, and MAGA freaking exploded.
Right.
And so that's Vance 24 hours later trying to put out the fire that Donald Trump caused with his regime change tweet by saying, "Look, I know this looks like we're doing more new wars when we promised we weren't, but this is Donald Trump doing the new wars now. Yeah. This isn't George Bush. He's smarter than them. He'll do these new wars better than they did the new wars. Trust in Trump." That's what he's saying.
Peace through strength.
Ron. They didn't buy it.
Peace through strength. Okay, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and show some very interesting footage out of the White House Faith Office. People literally praying for Donald Trump, and also more on these ICE kidnappings and detentions. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. The weather this time of year can turn on a dime. One minute you're sweating through your shirt, the next you're wishing you brought that jacket with you, especially when you're out and about getting things done in the yard and generally spending more time outside. Fortunately, Mack Weldon has everything you need to stay cool, comfortable and stylish regardless of the temperature. Their new Tech Linen line combines the easy charm of classic linen with Cool Max technology to help you look and feel your best all season long. Explore polos, sweaters, hoodies, and more at macweldon.com and get 25% off your first order with the code UNCOVERED. I love these black t-shirts from Mack Weldon. They've really improved my comfort whilst maintaining my classic look. And the technical fabric means that I stay comfortable all day long. Looking confident doesn't have to mean calling attention to your clothes. Mack Weldon balances classic pieces with updated details to keep you looking sharp. They're not flashy, just classic, always in style, and made from the world's most comfortable performance materials. Give your closet a breath of fresh air for spring. Go to macweldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code UNCOVERED. That's MACKWELDON.com. Promo code UNCOVERED. I'm excited to share with you C15 from Fatty 15, the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It's an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. And you guessed it, healthy aging. Fatty 15 founder Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson discovered the benefits of C15 while working with the US Navy to continually improve the health and welfare of aging dolphins. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells and is a key healthy aging nutrient which helps slow biological aging at the cellular level. In fact, when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and age faster. And when our cells age, our bodies age too. This eventually led to studies finding the first new nutritional deficiency in 75 years, called cellular fragility syndrome, caused by a lack of the C15. As many as 1 in 3 people worldwide may have low C15 levels and cellular fragility syndrome. By replenishing our cells with the crucial C15 nutrient, Fatty 15 effectively repairs cells, reverses aging at the cellular level, and restores our long-term health and wellness. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/uncovered and using code UNCOVERED at checkout. And links to our sponsors are in the description below. Talk to me about the White House Faith Office. Now, this is a new department. I don't think this has been there under previous presidents, has it? Or am I wrong?
No one else has done. I mean, Trump did it in his first term, but this time he's put it on steroids.
Right.
Where he's put Paula White Dean, whose husband's in the band Journey, by the way. Her husband is the one who wrote the song "Faithfully," in Open Arms.
Right.
So he's the keyboardist for Journey. She's a evangelical minister. She sells like $75 faith blankets and all these different things that are supposed to, help you ward off evil spirits and all of that. But she has been, one of the big vocal evangelical supporters of Trump. So he created this White House Faith Office where I think there's 4 or 5 of them full time in the White House. And whenever you see all those like group prayers where they're like laying hands on Trump and praying over him and stuff, that's all organized by Paula. So JD got with Midas got footage of one of their little prayer things outside because they had some pastors in from Texas, probably, I don't know, praying over this, that he bombs Iran, sufficiently, kills enough people in Iran.
Kills as many brown
make
people
Jesus
as
happy.
Yes.
So, it was just bizarre because the prayer, you have this guy who's like speaking in tongues in the background, saying these chants and people I think were very stunned when they saw this, but I tell you, this stuff is going on all the time there behind the scenes. We just haven't caught it on video before, but this is right outside the White House, right outside the entrance to the White House.
Let's take a look.
We just thank you you right now, Lord, from the east, the west, the north, and the south. You will shake America with your power and your glory. We cancel every assignment of the enemy. This nation was birthed to be one nation under God, and we are standing on the soil of the White House, and we are declaring your word. Every place that our foot will trod, you will give it to us, and we are taking the land. We thank you, oh Lord. You have brought us to the kingdom for a time such as this, and this is the time. And so we declare right now from the capital of our nation that America will come back to God. We will come back to God. Nothing will stop this nation. And we speak right now by the authority of heaven. You told us to bring heaven to earth. Heaven is being released through your people right now.
Okay. I mean, these are the people who have been telling their congregations and stuff that Donald Trump is was saved by God from an assassin's bullet, and that he has been ordained, as the second coming of the Messiah. And so for them, people like them, what they tell their people is things like Iran is a holy war. It's being done on behalf of God's chosen children. We have to help the Israelis. We have to do whatever they want, or else God will be angry at us, because that's what it says in Genesis. So, I mean, there are you seeing, like, those are the people that are at the grassroots level leading that movement.
Meanwhile, people are being snatched off the streets of the US in a way that can only be described as barbaric, and pregnant women, women and dads ripped from their children, screaming family and neighbors. Some people have been standing up to these kind of ICE federal agents, saying, show your face, show your badge, checking filming the number plate of the vehicle. The vehicles that they show up in are kind of weird, out-of-state rentals. There's something not right about this story, and I actually posted this morning that I think that in the coming weeks, the chance of a story breaking about, who these people really are, sure, some of them are police and some of them are federal officers, but really, like the fat ones with their own kind of homemade gear, are you kidding me? There's some vigilante action going on here, I'm sure of it. And, I'm not going to be the one to break that story, but I am fully expecting it to happen.
Yeah, I do. I think what's going to end up happening is some kind of shootout between local law enforcement and ICE agents. The local law enforcement who mistake ICE agents for somebody, or people who think that they're being robbed, or their house is being broken into and they're being robbed. But look, only Donald Trump and his bumbling fools can take issues that are traditionally very popular in the polls, like bombing Iran. I mean, normally when the United States, has a military conflict, starts one with a foreign country, that president's poll numbers spike every time. H.W. Bush's, where his approval rating was like 88% after the first Gulf War. Same with George W. I'm talking about when it first started, right?
Sure.
Americans tend to rally behind the leader. 56%, 55% of the polls were American people were dead set against the bombing in Iran. So he took cutting government spending, another thing that should be popular. They screwed that all up. Mm-hmm. Musk ends up leaving the administration with a 25% approval rating with the American people. How do you make cutting spending unpopular? You screw it all up. And here you have, again, with these deportations, Trump's number one issue in the campaign. The reason why he made it the number one issue in the campaign is because all the polls were with him on at least a significant number of deportations and securing the border. Of all the issues that he had, that was the issue that pulled the best for him. And he has screwed it up, because while the polls show something like 55% of the American people want a significant number of deportations, the same number in the polls say that they hate the way he's going about it. The way that they're doing it is all wrong. They don't want people abducted at job sites and Home Depots. And, the one guy who's the father of the 3 Marines was on a landscaping job. He was weed whacking a lawn when they jump out of their vans and chase him. So look, people, when masked people jump out of a van.
Yeah, you
and
run.
They got masks and camos and they start running at you.
Get out of there, yeah.
I mean, you're going to be terrified, and sooner or later something is going to happen. And the excuse that they continue to use is that, well, they have to do it this way because ICE agents are supposedly being doxxed, right?
Yeah.
There hasn't been a single incident of like the background information, the family information being put on the internet of ICE agents or anyone going to an ICE agent's house and doing harm to them or their family. Not one time has this happened.
Democrats don't do that kind of shit. What you're describing there is kind of MAGA Republican shit, right?
Every time a judge rules against Donald Trump, they dox their entire family, their children, their daughters, their wives, their husband. I mean, that's their standard playbook. And they're using their own playbook, which is not happening, as their excuse.
Right.
And you know who I have read the most complaining about it is local law enforcement, because these local police departments and county sheriffs are not being informed ahead of time that they're doing these raids. And they get these frantic phone calls, 911. 3 guys in masks and guns have just gone into a building, and they rush out there because the feds don't tell them what they're doing. And they rush out there, and then they go, oh, okay, it's ICE.
Well, they don't tell them because
sooner or later, something bad's going to happen here.
Well, Tom Homan actually said that in an interview a couple of times. He said, someone is going to get killed at this rate. And, he was basically predicting that it could get that nasty. Did you read about this policy that it actually didn't get ratified in Missouri, where the governor suggested that you could be a vigilante kind of ICE unofficial bounty hunter, and you'd get $1,000 if you grabbed an illegal immigrant and another $1,000 if they were deported. Obviously the bill didn't pass, but the fact that it was even suggested is just a real kind of indictment of where we're at.
And here's the other problem, is that what I have read, and this is only going to get worse, is to increase the deportations to the numbers they want. They need more agents.
Right.
And sending somebody through an academy, on the job, getting them the proper training takes a long time.
Yeah.
Takes 6 months, takes a year, and they're not doing that. They're taking like people getting out of the military. That's a big thing right now. What they're doing is people that are separated, they're even offering incentives. They're telling people, we'll let you out early, 60 days early, 90 days early, out of the military, so you can go be an ICE agent. And what I have read is like they're putting them through these 2 and 3 week academies and putting them out on the street. And that is extremely dangerous, because there's an awful lot of training that you need to go through in order to do this properly. And in the military, you do not get this kind of training. The training is completely different. And by the way, when this big, beautiful bill goes through, it has a massive amount of funding for what? New ICE agents.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get worse.
The people are comparing them to the brown shirts. And, this is sadly now the reality. This is not like a threat of, this is going to happen if. This is actually happening now on the streets. And I'm going to show a clip of these masked men supposedly, wearing Border Patrol vests. And I warn you, if you don't want to see this, look away, because it is pretty harrowing. It's about a minute long. Here it is. I don't think it has any sound over it, so we can actually talk over it. And I'll just describe for those who are watching or listening on our audio podcast, is that they've got this guy on the ground, but then he's already detained, right? They're already down, but the lead officer is punching him in the head repeatedly, violently. And this is in Santa Ana, the father, before they force him into the back of an unmarked car. So the guy now is debilitated, he's injured, and you have these various federal agents wearing, they all have slightly different costumes on. That's the thing. There seems to be no uniformity in how they appear. But their treatment of him is extremely violent. And what I would finally say on this is that and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, but I think a lot of the individuals involved in these types of arrests and detainments and everything else are themselves white supremacists. They are themselves, vehement Trump supporters. They feel like they are doing the right thing. And I guess that's part of the reason how they've convinced themselves, a bit like, German officers convince themselves that they're doing good for their country. Because how else would you be able to do this, to actually physically assault people, violently hurt them, and think that you're doing good for your nation?
And that man is 5'7", 160 pounds. He has 3 sons. He's been in the country over 20 years. He was working at a landscaping job at the time at an IHOP. He was trimming the grass at an IHOP restaurant.
Yes.
His oldest son recently got out of the Marine Corps. His next 2 sons are currently on active duty in the Marines. All 3 of his boys served the United States or are currently serving the United States in the military and are U.S. citizens, which is more than the Trump family, more service than the Trump family ever did. And instead of like going to this guy and saying, you're not a citizen, even though you've been here 25 years, giving him a court, you need to come to court next week. Instead of doing that, they just do these Gestapo raids where they just grab them off the street, throw them in detention. And look, what we see on these videos is the easy part, actually, is not the worst part. The worst part is what happens to these people after they go into detention. Many of them are shipped to privately run facilities, shipped to other countries, as the Supreme Court says, will now be allowed. And it only gets worse. I mean, I just did the story on the pregnant woman who lost her baby, who 4.5 months, she got no prenatal care. Her food, her diet was terrible. She wasn't given any. She was moved from like Minnesota to Louisiana.
Right. Yeah, there was like cockroaches in the food.
Cockroaches in the food. She lost her baby. Yeah. And so they don't care. Like, you can't sue them. And so it's just like they have immunity. So, this is what they want. This is what Stephen Miller wants. He wants a terror campaign because there's 2 objectives. Number one is because for the MAGA base, this stuff is like crack cocaine. I mean, they watch these videos and they're in ecstasy. I mean, these are like the greatest things ever. And they tweet them out and they say, this is what I voted for. So that's one reason. And the reason number 2 is for the terror campaign is they want these public displays of abuse and force because they want people to self-deport. They want people to leave the country on their own because they're so afraid of how they're going to be treated if they're detained.
I mean, it's very hard, to live here, to be here whilst this is going on. And I speak as an immigrant. I mean, as an American citizen, I'm sure you must feel appalled at what has happened to your nation in the last 6 months.
I mean, on this show many times, I was critical of Biden's immigration policy.
Sure.
I don't think he had one, but I was critical of it. Okay. And so like, if deportations were done like in a reasonable way and apprehensions were done in a reasonable way, or if they limited it to people with criminal records like they claimed, then I think most people would not have a problem with it. And I wouldn't be like yelling and screaming about it every day. But the way they're going about this and the way they're doing it is completely wrong. It's inhuman. It's inhumane. And they think that most of the country is with them on this, but they are not. They are not with them. And it's going to keep getting worse. This is the tip of the iceberg because it's going to get much worse when this budget bill passes, because honestly, they don't have the resources to be able to do the kind of deportation operations that they want to do. They're going to ramp this up way more than it is right now.
Yeah.
And you constantly hear this over and over again from Trump voters who it's like, I didn't think they were going to take my employee. I didn't think they were going to take my neighbor. I didn't think they were going to take my landscaper. I didn't think they were going to take the guy at the taco shop. And it's like the reality is setting in for them. Yes, these are the real world consequences of your prejudice.
I mean, it's remarkable. Also, there's no thought about, and I'll just speak on behalf of immigrants for a moment. You know, we come here to assimilate. We come here to join in. We come here to abide by the requirements of our visas. We go to our hearings. We pay taxes. We try not to break the law or even get a DUI. You know, anything that could be a problem, that could compromise the rules of engagement. It's about coming to seek a better life and to contribute. And to be painted, for migrants to be painted as murderers and drug dealers and rapists and coming from insane asylums is so offensive. It's so far from the reality. And, you know, when there's no food on the shelves because the farm workers are no longer around in 6 months' time, that's when the white people are going to start to be like, hang on, what's going on here?
And that's going to happen
for sure.
Let's take students. I mean, I don't know if you have the new guidance from the State Department on that from Marco Rubio.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, look at that policy.
So this is every visa adjudication is a national security decision. Effective immediately, all individuals applying for an F, M, or J non-immigrant visa are requested to adjust the privacy settings on all of their personal social media accounts to public to facilitate vetting necessary to establish their identity and admissibility to the United States. This is a new State Department policy that effectively is going to judge you based upon your opinion of Donald Trump.
Yeah, the visas that they're talking about, there are student and faculty visas for universities primarily.
Yeah.
So every foreign student, and we're talking about a couple 100,000, there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And faculty, visiting faculty and researchers,
right?
Who anybody who's working at a university from a foreign country has to, prior to getting their visa approved, open up their social media accounts for the United States government to be able to go in there and look at it. Now, under the theory of like, if there's anti-Semitic stuff in there, I mean, that's the argument that
that's what they did
use,
with
right?
Mahmoud Khalil, right, originally, and Rameza Ozturk for
exactly
for
that's
that kind
excuse.
of stuff. But this is a whole new level beyond that because
you know what they're looking for? They're looking for anti-Trump stuff.
Right.
They're looking for you. If you have stuff on your phone trashing Donald Trump, I mean, imagine if they looked at my social media account, I'd be in big trouble, right? It's all anti-Trump. So, the point is like they're going to deny student visas and professor visas to professors, some of the leading scientists in the world, if they have anti-Trump stuff on their social media. This is what I believe is about to happen.
Meanwhile, America in the long run will become dumber, less educated, less well-read and well-written. It's all the deconstruction of the education system from the department down. It's going after universities. I mean, there is a whole policy behind this that's baked into Project 2025. They want people to be stupid. They want people to be compliant. They want people to be subjects of the leadership. And, that's why I worry that the chances of us seeing a legitimate election ever again are diminishing every day because, this is all about control. And I honestly believe, Trump is trying to get control of Democratic strongholds, coming after California, trying to, swing what he can. I think that this is, it's going to ramp up over the coming months. And as you say, the way that they will probably expand the racism, which is, as I see it, the racism to make America white again, I think that is only going to become more and more explicit. And
so
we mustn't normalize it.
I want to make an editorial comment too, by the way,
Go
because, obviously in this show, the name of the show is Uncovered. We're going through a lengthy laundry list parade of horrible stuff that Trump is doing. And, my column is half this and the other half stuff about what Democrats are doing and stuff. So, sometimes I get feedback, I know you probably do too, that it's like people give up hope, they get downtrodden, it's always it's bad. It's, the point is this. The Trump administration wants to do all this stuff in the dark. They want everything we've talked about, whether it's national security, Iran, we see all these leaks. They don't want the American people to know what they're doing because they know that a lot of the American people will rebel against it, but they have to know about it. Yes. And that's what we're trying to do here. Look, we're not organizing protests on this show like that. Other people do that. Our job is to uncover what is going on behind the scenes and to inform the American people and people around the world what is really happening so that they can take action. So this isn't just like a bitch session or a session to try and like make people upset or depressed. It's not. Hopefully some of this stuff energizes you because we just want to get people the information that they're not getting from mainstream media.
Well, the primary in New York last night with Zoran Mamdani getting his kind of victory against Cuomo. I mean, he as a kind of young immigrant, to me, gave me so much hope, made me feel like there is an appetite for change. And it even kind of got the MAGA people wound up enormously. It didn't, Elise Stefanik post this weird thing. TikTok, Kathy Hochul. We know you are in full-blown panic mode as you frantically draft and send out the congratulatory tweet to the anti-Semitic jihadist communist candidate you helped elect in your party's Democratic primary. Because of your silence, weakness, and ineptitude, you own this dangerous insanity and are incapable of defeating it, so next year New Yorkers will defeat you to save our state. They're worried, aren't they? I mean, that's a panicked posting.
Well, I don't know, because I can just tell you that a week ago, I told everybody at Midas, I said, if he wins, the person who is going to believe that they have benefited the most from his win is Elise Stefanik, because she wanted him to win very badly. Because she's going to run for governor against Kathy Hochul. That's the worst kept secret in America. She's talking about Hochul every day, right? We know she's running. And what she was she did not want Cuomo to win, the New York City. She wanted this guy to win because here's what they think is going to happen. This I can tell you because I watch all their shows, read what they write.
Yeah.
They think that this is going to be a spectacular disaster. They think that wealthy people, the rich, the elites are going to flee New York City and go to places like Florida because the socialists is won. They think that Jewish people in New York, which is a huge, very influential part of New York politics, is going to be upset about this because now you have a Muslim mayor of New York City, et cetera, who has made some provocative statements about Israel. So they are banking on this being a disaster. Okay. So this could go one of two ways. Obviously, he's very charismatic. I mean, there's some comparisons to a young Obama here, very charismatic.
Yeah.
A guy who didn't, run big organizations, didn't sort of slowly work his way up the ladder, although he was an assemblyman. He's somebody who took a big leap, similar to Obama. I mean, when Obama ran for Senate, he hadn't run for anything before.
No,
I mean,
he was a community organizer.
And then he went straight from Senate to like 2 years later, the presidency.
Yeah.
So you have a similar thing happening here. And I think, the example would be Bernie. Bernie Sanders in Burlington, Vermont, years ago was the mayor, and that's how he got his start as a socialist mayor of a city. Now, nothing like the size of New York City, Burlington, Vermont, but still, largest city in Vermont. And, he said, as a socialist, he said, I had to learn that you might have all these great ideas of things that you want to do, progressive ideas, but the bottom line is you got to run the city. You got to make sure that it's safe. You got to make sure the potholes are filled. There's a lot of mundane, everyday shit that you need to do to keep people in your city happy. And what Bernie said to all progressives and socialists who want to be mayors is you got to take care of that shit first and then implement your progressive ideas. Now, if this guy does that, so this is going to go one or two ways. This is going to go the way Stefanik believes, which is going to be a spectacular disaster with wealth fleeing the city and decimating their tax base, or this guy is going to be a spectacular success, and that is going to light a fire under young progressive candidates because the Democratic Party has suppressed them, said, if we nominate progressives, we're going to lose in the general election.
Well, look at David Hogg being kicked out of the DNC in that way.
It's all part of this.
Yes.
And if this guy proves them wrong and is a successful, popular mayor, it opens the door. First of all, Schumer's toast. I mean, this election has ended Schumer's career because he has no chance of surviving a primary right now because the voters of the Democratic voters of New York, and I know this is New York City, but it's a big part of it, have made a statement that they don't want the old guard. They rejected Cuomo. They want someone like an AOC in that Senate seat or a Dan Goldman or somebody like that. Okay. So this race and his tenure as a mayor, and it's inevitable, I think, that he wins, is going to have national implications for the Democratic Party. Because if he's successful, it's going to open the door to young progressives all around the country who have been told, wait your turn, you're too liberal. It will open the door to them. So.
I have said, and I've stuck to this, that the solution for the Democrats is to go as woke as they possibly can. As much as I hate that word, just as to summarize. More, and I know you don't completely agree with this, but
I don't. But
the more
I know what you're saying.
Right, the more woke, the better. Because I think there was a fear with Kamala Harris that there was too much of that. There wasn't actually, if you analyze the campaign.
No,
but
I don't think there was.
Right, but that was, I think, some of the post analysis. And I think, including from her own, I watched that Pod Save America thing where with her advisors all kind of talking about the campaign, and they had a completely different view of the campaign than I did as an outsider. So I recognize that I think that, young, as you say, progressive voices, people of multiculture. I mean, we have a Muslim mayor of London who keeps being re-elected time and time again. Rather brilliant guy.
And I read MAGA quote saying he's going to make New York City like London.
Great. Bring it on.
I've seen that quote already out there.
Yeah. So I'm very much of the opinion that leaning in to the opposite of MAGA and that kind of white supremacy movement and celebrating multi-faith, multiculture, and recognizing that a city like New York is a perfect melting pot, a city like Los Angeles is a perfect melting pot. More languages spoken in these cities than anywhere else in the world. And knowing that
40% of New York City was not born in the United States.
Right. And that it does work, and it's already here. And trans people can't be hidden away, and gay people can't be hidden away. They already exist. And this is the reality. This is what America is. It is a country of migrants, built by migrants and slaves. So denying history and denying the existence of people that are already making the cities and the towns function, who are responsible for the functioning of America, to deny their existence or to deport them is not going to work out well for the country in the long run.
In my view, I mean, with the charisma that he has, he obviously connects well with people on the street, grassroots people. In my view, there's no middle ground here on this guy. And he's taken on one hell of a tough job.
Yeah.
It is either going to be a spectacular success and he is going to be a rising star in the party and open the door to many others like him, or he's going to be a spectacular failure and Elise Stefanik's going to be governor of New York. There's nothing in the middle.
It's hard, isn't
think,
it? Because I wrongly predicted that Kamala Harris would be successful in the general election, and so I'm trying not to feel that way about this guy and this election and the future for the Democratic Party. I actually think that leaning in to the opposite of MAGA is the only way to go.
There's many people in the Democratic Party who agree with that.
Yeah.
They're not most of the senior people,
right? But the senior people.
This is a chance for those people who do believe that, and Bernie Sanders would be another one who believes that, and AOC, to prove them wrong. And if he does prove them wrong, then we've heard the last of the old guard of the party. They'll be swept aside.
Just look at the demographic of the protesters against these ICE raids and against, no kings and against the oligarchs. Look at the demographic. It is a cross-section of Americans. It is everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not just one group. It is everybody. And in the same way that, years ago, the Women's March was mainly attended by females, and then more recently, everyone's joining in on these movements. And I think that there is an understanding now, because we're seeing people being disappeared off the streets by masked agents. And incidentally, I should just mention that Pam Bondi, who's currently in one of these, on the stand in one of these committees, says that she didn't know that ICE agents were masked during these roundups. So that's going to be well, obviously, but that's going to play out in a very interesting way. Listen, we have to finish. We had so much more to discuss that we didn't have time for, but I'm very pleased that we've been able to talk to this issue of where Democrats go from here. And I think that New York and the feeling, there's a very great feeling coming out of that city at the moment. And I think that to really capture that and to ride on the coattails of that is the shining light to follow in this moment. So congratulations there and all round. If you want to download the audio podcast of this show, you can do that. Drops later tonight, wherever you get yours. Rewind, watch it again, share it, comment down below. Don't forget our sponsors down there as well. And we'll come back next Wednesday and do another Uncovered. Thanks, Ron.
All right. See you next week.